All right, Rabotai. Erev Tov. We're live. Todo el mundo está bien? I can't duplicate or replicate Rav Stefanski. Sheikh, be well. You should be well. Raboisai. Okay, Baruch Hashem. We're studying Tzurba min Abanan. We're on volume number 1. We are discussing the certain halachot of Avodah Zarah, but not Avodah Zarah that like the Torah speaks about, where people are bowing down to statues and idols, but more other things that are more relevant to us. And today we're going to look a little bit at images, specifically that of the sun and the moon, and whether or not it connects to photographs of people. And that's something that is kedai to know. Photographs of people. I just got a photograph of myself today. What does that mean? Can someone have a photograph of me? Can I have a photograph of someone else? Anyways, we're going to start, as we always do, from the top, right? It always starts from the Gemara. We're going to look at the Gemara, the sources, and the Rishonim, and then we'll look at the Shulchan Aruch. It's a long piece of Gemara. And if you're following in this book, Tzurba min Abanan, volume 1, you're looking in page 72, where the Mishnah says, Demut surot levana ayu lo leRabban Gamliel betabla ubakote ba'aliyato. So the Masechet Rosh Hashanah deals extensively with the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, of Birkat Levana, and how they used to declare the new month. And Rabban Gamliel, being the Nasi, used to be an individual that had tremendous knowledge of the way that the lunar cycle works and even the solar cycles. And he had images in his office there in the attic. When he would come and interrogate the witnesses who claimed that they saw the new moon, he would ask them how certain things looked. So he had forms of the moon on a tablet on the wall of his attic. And that's he would show to the men. Did you see the moon like this or like this? So right away we see that Rabban Gamliel had some sort of images on his wall of a sun and a moon. Okay, well, let's see what the Gemara, because it's a very long Gemara over here. And again, it doesn't quote the whole Gemara, but it takes excerpts of the Gemara. So for the Gemara's first question is, Umi Share, is this even allowed? It's even allowed that Rabban Gamliel had such things. Vaketiv, the Pasuk says, Lo ta'asuniti, that you shall not make with me gods of silver, gods of gold. Amar Rav Huna bered Rav Idi. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Idi, says, I heard once from Abaye, Lo ta'asun iti, lo ta'asun oti. When it says, you shall not make with me, it means you shall not make me. Okay, fine. So, Ushar shemashin mishare. So, am I allowed to make other images of things that may represent me? Ve'atanya, lo ta'asun iti, lo ta'asun kidmut shimshai. That you cannot make images of my attendants that serve me. Kegon, ofanim, usrafim, bechayot hakodesh, umalachei hasharet, all different types of angels. Amar Abaye said, Lo asa Torah ela shamashin shebemador ha'elyon. That the Torah only prohibited the attendants that are found in the upper heaven. So Gemara asks, Shemador taton mishare? Is it permitted to have images of those in the lower heaven? Ve'atanya, we learn in a Baraita. Asher b'shamayim, the pasuk says that Asher b'shamayim in the heavens, lerabot hamau levana kochavim mazalot. It comes to include the sun, the moon, the stars, and the constellations. Mima lerabot malachei hasharet, right? And above is including the ministering angels. So therefore, we have a Baraita that says you're not allowed to have this. Kitanya hi le'ovdam. When it answers, when that Baraita was taught, it was against worshiping, but it was okay to have an image. Fine. Gemara continues. Is fashioning a sun or a moon something that is permitted? Another Baraita says, a Baraita says you cannot make images of my attendants, such as the sun, the moon, the stars, and the constellations. So now how do we justify Rabban Gamliel's answer? So Gemara is asking. So how do we justify Rabban Gamliel? Shani Rabban Gamliel da'acherim asulo. So Gemara wants to say, it's not the end of the world. Someone made it for Rabban Gamliel. He didn't make it himself. Someone did it for him. Someone gave him the images. But Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, but you have the case of Rabbi Yehuda, da'acherim asulo, where other people made him images. Ve'amale Shemuel Rabbi Yehuda, and Shemuel told Rabbi Yehuda, Shinena, sharp one, Same enei dadin, blind this one's eyes. In other words, you have to disfigure the image. You're not allowed to have an image of a human being in one's possession. So what happened? Hatam chotamo. So Gemara answers, Hatam chotamo bolet hava. Over there, in Rabbi Yehuda's image, there was something that was protruding. Umishum hashta, and there was some sort of suspicion. There was chashad that this image was holding some sort of idol. Kedetanya, as the Braita taught, tabat, when you have a ring, chotamo bolet, if the seal protrudes, asul anicha, it's prohibited to place it on one's finger. Umutar lachtomba, but you are allowed to seal with it. Chotamo sokea, but if the seal is sunken in, mutar lanicha ve'asul lachtomba, you are allowed to place it. Okay, but you cannot seal things with it, because when you seal something that is sunken, it creates something protruding. Okay, so that's imagine you have something that's sunken and you push in, that's prohibited. That's prohibited. To make something protrude, that's going to be the nafkamina here, which is a big difference between something that is sunken and something protruding, carved in. So the Gemara says, wait a second, are we concerned about this suspicion? The Shafiyati Benarda, there was a certain Bet Knesset that was destroyed, and the stones were relocated and rebuilt so that it sat in Narda. The Hava Be Andarata, and there was a statue of a king. Vehavu Aile Ravu Shmuel, Vehavu Adi Shmuel, Velevi Matruatam. Rav and Shmuel's father and Levi would all go there and pray. They weren't suspicious or concerned about suspicion. So what's the issue? So Gemara answers Rabim Shani. When many Jews are present, it's different. We're not going to worry about anything. But Gemara says, Rabban Gamliel Yachidu. Rabban Gamliel was an individual. Kevan de Nasihu, Shicher Rabim Gabe. Gemara says, no, but since he was a Nasi, many people were always with him. That's one answer. Ibayema, you could also say the Prakim Hava, that they were formed from pieces of the images and put together. And some say no, he did this to teach himself, which is not prohibited. Okay, as the pasuk says, you should not learn to do, but you could learn to understand and to teach. So a lot of long Gemara over here backing him, defending Rabban Gamliel about these images that he had in his home. Okay. So let's look at the Rishonim. What do the Rishonim have to say about this specifically? That we're going to begin with Rambam and Tosafot. They both say the same thing, but let's look at the Rambam. Rambam says in source 19, V'chen asur latzur dmut chama ulevana kochavim umazalot umalachim. A person would not be allowed to draw the image of a sun, moon, stars, or constellations. Shneimah lo ta'asuniti. This pasuk says, you should not make with me. What does it mean? Iti lo ta'asun kidmut shimshai. Should not make images of my attendants. Hamshamshin lifnei marom va'afilu ala luach, even on a tablet. Tzurot habehemot. You cannot make images. Even on a tablet. Tzurot habehemot ushar nefesh chaya chutz min ha'adam. Now, images of animals and other creatures, except for man. V'tzurot ha'ilanot u'dshaim v'chayotze bahen. Mutar latzurotam va'afilu hayta tzura boletet. Okay, you can draw them even if the image was protruding. Okay, so therefore Tosafot and the Rambam say you cannot make any image even if they're flat, even if they're sunken. And therefore, when the Gemara makes that distinction between sunken and protruding, it's only with regards to people or animals. Okay, good. Comes the Ramban. Ramban is more strict. Okay, Ramban says that even we have concluded that the shapes of heavenly bodies, even the ones in the lower heavens, that would be the sun and the moon, are prohibited. Makes no difference if they're raised or sunken. The same thing with regards to an illustration of a face. When the Torah says do not make, it doesn't make a distinction between that which is raised or sunken. It's only when other people made it. That's what the Gemara said. When the other people made it for Rabban Gamliel, or for Rabbi Yehuda in that case, okay, that's when the Gemara made the distinction. Oh, don't worry, it was sunken. But for you to make it, it makes no difference if it is flat, sunken, or it is protruding. Asur. Okay? Fine. And the last opinion is out of the Ritva. And the Ritva, we're not going to read inside, but the note here says that, just because we want to move on and look at some other sources, that the Ritva says one is permitted to make any image if it's flat. A protruding image of heavenly bodies as well as a human face is not allowed, but ones of other objects are permitted. One is always permitted to retain objects as long as there is no concern of hashad.
Question.
Yes.
I don't know if this has been brought up yet, but we're talking about sunken or protruding, but what if it was flat? 2D.
So I think that when the Chachamim here are saying sunken, it's in referring to flat.
Is it though? Because we discussed the seat like a seal, in which case you're really pushing something into wax.
Yeah.
It's sunken.
That for sure sunken.
But they're saying, like, for example, back then they had a quill with ink.
Yeah.
It really wasn't sunken. It wasn't sunken to the point where you can call it sunken. It would probably have a different term for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're pushing.
Took a drawing. Well, yeah, there is a sunken image and then or form, and then there's a drawing.
But you're saying drawing.
I think, yeah. Well, yeah. Based on the lesson of the Rambam of drawing, he does say you cannot draw, right? And we'll see that the Shulchan Aruch is posek like them. Okay.
It's something like a stack. Flat is a drawing, and protruding is like a sculpture.
Yeah, exactly. So look, Shulchan Aruch is posek. Asur in source 22. Asur letzayer, cannot draw. Surot shebemador shechina. You cannot draw images in the sphere of the Shekhinah. Kegon, Dalit Panim Bade Adadi, for example, the four faces together. This is the images in the Maaseh Merkava in Sefer Yechezkel. V'chen surot serafim ve'ofanim malachei hasharet. You cannot draw images of different types of angels. V'chen surat Adam levado. You wouldn't be allowed to draw the face of a person by itself. Kol elu asur la'asot afilu lenoi, even if they're done for beauty. And if a goy makes this for you, you're not even allowed to keep it. When did we say that it applies? If the pictures are raised, but if they're sunken, okay, similar to those that are woven in clothing, or drawn on walls, it would be permitted to make these drawings. And images of the sun, moon, and stars. Okay? Okay? Though they would be allowed, but there seems to be something skipping over here, but they're not allowed when they're just stamped to draw. Okay? Right? Yeah, he leaves that part out. Okay, so if they're good, yeah. Oh, okay. So if you're going to teach it, if you're going to teach about the sun and the moon, it's allowed. But if you're to stamp draw, it's not allowed. And the Rava here says v'yesh matirim b'shel rabim. Some people permit in a case if there's many people present. So the Shach asked your question, Jacob. Shach clarifies that. He says, when it says boletet, when it says raised, perush beboletet dafka hu dasur ben beshueh ben ba'oseh, specifically in the case they are raised, it's forbidden to make them and to retain them. And for this reason, when people draw on the wall or a tablet, afapishu shaveh, even though it's flat, mikra shokat, is considered sunken. Kevan delo have boletet, since it's not protruding. כמו שהן עצמם. והירקה צורת הלחמה ולבניו כיושב בהן, דנמי שוקים ברקיע, אסור אפילו בשוקה. Therefore, pictures of sun and the moon, which are seen as two-dimensional, are forbidden even if they are sunken. Okay?
Excuse me. The paintings, usually the big painters, you have they're all flat, you have
Yeah.
persons, and now we have the pictures of Hamim and Sally and so on, It's
Okay, so we're gonna see the Achronim over here. Basically, what we're saying now is that it seems from the Shulchan Aruch you're not allowed to draw a picture of a face by itself. But only if they're raised. Okay, if they're raised, that's where the Shulchan Aruch gave that. But medvarim beboletet, about b'shokat, it says it's fine. However, the Taz, which we're not going to read inside, but the Taz says that even flat faces or drawings on a paper is not allowed. Okay.
When we're talking about, I guess, the sun, moon, and stars, what exactly is considered the shape of a sun, moon, and stars? Because if we look at
that's a good question.
Sometimes it's just the brightness.
That's a good question. So we're gonna see some of that. I'm pretty sure we're gonna see. I think Rav Vadia might refer to that. But Lemase, we don't know what a sun looks like, right? When you see a little kid drawing an image of a sun with little things, that's not what a sun like. What is a sun? It's a how do you just make a decision between that and a circle? It's
just like light.
Yes, nachon, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the Taz goes to town against the Shulchan Aruch, and he's claiming why he didn't represent the Ramban. He left the Ramban was more strict. He says, "What is this? He doesn't hold to that. It's mind-boggling on an Isur Deoraita that you're taking more of the lenient of the approaches." Anyways, now with that in mind, we can move on to photographs of people. So the first source that's here was from Avraham Yitzchak Cohen Cook, and he says as following: "B'tshuva al shelato, אם יש איזה מניעה על פי דין תורה מלצייר ציורים של תמונות של יהודים חרדים." Who asked about the Baba Sali here? Yeah, right. You have a picture of the Baba Sali, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. People are drawing all these things. They asked Rav Kook, "Is this a problem?" So he says, "אתכבד בזה להודיעו שישנם חסידים שהם נמנעים לצלם את תמונתם." You should know there are a lot of people who refuse to be photographed. Forget about a drawing, even photographed. וכן אינם נותנים רשות לציירים לצייר את צלמם, and they don't give permission to artists to draw them. בצבע על היריעה, on their picture with color on canvas. ויש לדבריהם מקום בשיטות של הפוסקים. And they have opinions. There's precedent there. וקל וחומר במהלך החסידות והפרישות, how much more so in the way of piousness. אבל הלכה פשוטה, the basic law שנתפשטה בישראל על פי דין השולחן ערוך היא שלצייר צורת אדם בצבע על הלוח. You could draw someone on a canvas, והוא הדין לצלם צלום פוטוגרפי, and the same thing would apply to a photograph. אין איסור מצד דין, and there is no prohibition. וכן יפוץ המנהג גם אצל חלק הגון מיראים וחרדים. There's also many worthy and pious individuals that practice the same way. כשיש בדבר צורך של מצווה, especially when there's a need for mitzvah, וחיבוב התורה ביהדות, or to show love of Judaism, או שער עניין מוכרח ונחוץ, or other type of necessity. So Rav Kook says there's no problem to get your drawing, to get a picture, a photograph, especially if it's going to be for holy purposes, Ilulah, whatever it is, it's fine. However, look what the Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch says, in the note here, it says that Yakut Yosef issues a similar ruling and explains that it's permitted to keep a picture album in one's home. Okay, but Shulchan Aruch in 26 says, Yesh mishomer, shelo asru betzurat adam ודרקון, אלא דווקא בצורה שלמה בכל איבריה. When the rabbi said that you cannot have a picture of a person, it's the entire full form of the person.
Up to the toes.
Yeah. אבל צורת ראש או גוף בלא ראש, but if it's just the head or the body without the head, אין בה שום איסור, לא במוצאו, לא בעושה. There's no prohibition to retain it or to even make it, וכן נוהגים, and that's what the Rama says. And the Shach also says, not the Shach, the Shudat Kohen says, you should try to make sure that the drawing is not complete. Together with the feet. Either the top part, which is the main splendor of the person. That's the ideal thing that people want to draw.
Wouldn't that be against? Like it's like promoting it. Like if this is the beauty of a human being, so you should only show the top part of it.
Yeah, well,
Isn't that like
none, I don't know. The Taz presents an additional stringency even regarding an image of a face alone, though many contemporary Acharonim are more lenient. See Yakut Yosef and Shevet Levi. The discussion is relevant to using a sheitel head upon which to place a wig. Ever see what those are? Everyone knows what those are? Yeah, those foam sheitel heads that they put their wigs on. I remember the first one I see. You walk in the room, you see one of those, freak out.
At your friend's house, you're 7, 8 years old.
Yeah. Everyone's got their first experience with one of those.
Even worse when it has the hair on it.
Yeah, that's what he says over here.
Go to the mikvah. Go everywhere.
Now, the Mishnah Halachot, which was Rav Menashe Klein, says, he answers the question, can a person refuse to let a photographer take a picture? He says, read English. Now then it stands to reason that not only would one who is stringent upon himself not to be photographed be able to object to others not to do anything, as he views this as a prohibition, and no damage should come to him in the next world because of it. Rather, even someone who is not particular about being photographed and is accustomed to it may still object to someone photographing him. And aside from that, it seems that there's also a problem of theft, as a person may sell the right of photography to one who wishes to photograph him and receive payment for it, which means he's causing financial damage. And see the Bet Yitzchak that it is forbidden to copy Torah Chidushim from another without permission. Therefore, it is forbidden to copy another's manuscript. Certainly, it's forbidden to do so to his body. Who gave you the right to take a picture of me and put it somewhere else and sell it and make money off it? And even though I wrote elsewhere that no prohibition of theft exists with regards to viewing something, to take a photograph is still forbidden without consent. Interesting. Which applies today, right? Schools certainly deal with this 100%. We have a no photograph policy. Our school has a no photograph policy where certain kids, certain parents that don't take a picture of my kid, you have to follow it. And now according to this, you're followed by Halacha, not just by the privacy laws, even by Halacha.
Do you do class pictures on religious schools?
Do we do what?
Class.
Yes.
They do.
So they would not be part of that picture. They would not be part of that picture. So there's different levels of the no photograph rules. Some say you could take the photograph if it stays within the school circles and not social media. Right? That's a different thing. Chuta Shani writes, La'anach poskim, because of those poskim that write, Ditmunat Adam, that a picture of a person is prohibited even if it's not sunken. Many Gdolim refrained from having their picture taken because they don't want to put a stumbling block in front of the guy taking the picture. because they hold there's no difference in a flat form and sunken. With regard to those who don't let themselves be photographed, okay, as we said before, he argues, he says you cannot prohibit someone else from photographing you. The Chazon Ish didn't allow anyone to take a picture of him, unless it was a great need or through a non-Jew. Passport, like he needed a passport. And that was the custom of the previous generations. In our days with digital cameras, no one is stringent like the Ramban. Maybe that's still the reason why the tzaddikim refrain from taking a lot of pictures of them. All right? Okay. So now that we've kind of covered a little bit about images of people and pictures, so now the next section here speaks about dolls and toys, which is much more than that. It's a protrude. It's something protruding. It's a figure. It's not a drawing. So, can you buy children's dolls due to all the things that we learned? And the first source we're going to see is Rav Ovadia Yosef in Yechavedat, where he asks, "Ha'im mutar liknot la'yiladim bubot asiyot tavnit adam boletet?" Can I buy a doll for a child, whereas the image of people and its raised features? So he says, Masechet Avodah Zarah, mevuar she'asur la'asot tzurat adam boletet. Masechet Avodah says you can't make an image of a person in a raised form. V'dat Rabbeinu Moshe Mikutzi, Sefer HaMitzvot, the Smag, Sefer HaMitzvot Gadol, she'afilu partzuf adam bolet beli haguf en la'asot. Right? So according to Smag, that even just the face, which we learned before was okay, but the face, if it's bolet, okay, you can't do it. Forget about the whole body, even just the face if it's protruding. Ulam Tosfot ve'arosh katfu shelo asru b'gemara asiyat andrati, okay? Ela mishum she'itzelem dmut adam b'chol gufo, aval tzurat hapatzu iva b'lo guf mutar. Tosfot argues, says if it's just the face, it's allowed. V'chen pasak maran Shulchan Aruch yored de'ah. That's what the Shulchan Aruch codifies. Beram kol ze b'asiyat patzuf adam bolet lenoi. This applies to fashioning a human face for aesthetic purposes. Kegon andrati, like a statue, she'itzura kvu'ah, which is permanent. Aval bubot, but for dolls, hasiyot letzot tinokot lesachek bahen, it's made for little children to play with. Nireh she'en b'asiyatan shum isur. There's no isur making them. V'kol sheken shemutar liknotan u'lashotam rishuto, and certainly you can go buy it for them. Specifically after Tosfot writes, okay, that the whole thing was based on suspicion of idolatry. Now, when you buy a doll, no one's thinking of idolatry with the doll. All right, so Rav Ovadia says, no problem buying one of those dolls. Okay, now look at note number 5 here. However, it should be noted that in Yabia Omer, in a different place, 1988, Rav Ovadia writes that it's prohibited to fashion dolls, to make them. One should only purchase them with the top part of the body. And he says, and the whole thing is written over here. A similar ruling is cited on the next page from Yakut Yosef. However, in his response, Chavedat, 2002, he's lenient. So we find his more. So the one that was quoted in 31 was from the year 2002. Okay, and the first one that's quoted here in the note is from 1988. So the fact that what they're saying is, if he seemed to have retracted his strict opinion and followed more leniently, because that was his later ruling, right? Okay. Says the Shevet HaLevi, asks a similar question. Is one who has a doll in his house with hands and feet obligated to deform it? Okay, that there's a prohibition retaining it during to Hashad. Okay, so he says, Var pashut tetzura shlema upanim shalem dasu le'ashol tzarим livgom panim kalacha. he says, yes, you do. Cut off a finger.
Yeah, like a statue.
Yeah, you got to break something off. So then he asks, is it sufficient to deform part of the face, such as an eye or the nose? Or perhaps, since it's mentioned in Pitkei Tshuva that even if it has a featureless head, it's prohibited to retain the entire body. Maybe this isn't sufficient. So he says, concerning the novelty of the Avetz, that even a featureless head on the entire body is prohibited, it follows that the Rosh is referring to the form of a head, and he nevertheless only forbids this in a case of a complete form. Therefore, there's no room for stringency of the Yavetz. But regarding the primary argument of the Rosh, the Ma'arit argues that one should be stringent regarding a Torah violation. But the main violation refers to the face, and since one deforms in the correct manner, it's permitted. Okay? The Chut HaShani says, Mi sheyesh lo buba shlema, someone who has a complete doll, afilu rak harosh levad, even if it's just a head, imu tzura boletzet shel hapanim, if the image is raised regarding the face, shel ha'einayim, ha'af, oznaim, the eyes, the nose, the ears, lechatchila yaseh bo pekima nikeret. Do something to the nose or to the eyes that's noticeable. Be'ofen shenikar shu chaser. So that shows something is missing. Umikol makom, nevertheless, en ligor alelu hamashim surot elu, don't rebuke those who retain such images. Because like we said, it's not common for people to worship such shapes. Okay. Let's look at Yakut Yosef in 34. Yakut Yosef 34 says, "Hanoagim liknot liyadehem ktanim l'shem schok v'shashua." Someone who buy their children's dolls to play with, have whom to rely on. Nevertheless, it's good to be a little strict. Not to have a full human form with all the limbs and organs. Only the top, or one that can only be seen from one side, such as one eye, one hand. However, you're allowed to do business with these dolls, even full form. Okay, and even the full form, okay, full form. But you should not make it. And those who guard himself should distance himself from this. All those factories that make them, who says they're doing so with the will of the sages. One who asks about this should be told to act stringently. But nevertheless, one shouldn't rebuke those who are lenient harshly. So it really isn't so pashut. Right? He said earlier that you could buy a doll, but it's not the best thing to do. And in fact, then you have certain poskim here that say that if it's a full form doll, you have to cut something off.
Yeah, and it's worse to offer a kid, a doll with one arm, or without an eye,
Yeah. What's a kid gonna think, right?
We're doing that.
Well, it says all the organs. Dolls usually don't have like the lower set of organs. We're talking about they don't have private parts, for example. Could that be considered a part
So
that's missing?
a lot of the dolls come are dressed, permanently dressed. They got some sort of foam feet or something like that. Listen, I grew up with wrestling figurines. I was a big WWF at the time. It was WWF, right? Like I used to love that. And one of the things you used to have Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, and we used to fight. This was the wrestling. Sam, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like these were huge things, and we used to play with them, and they were literally in the shape of. It looked exactly like them. They were really, really great. So what can you do?
Yeah,
And it makes you think. You go to Madame Tussauds,
exactly.
right? Madame Tussauds would be the worst of all of this, right? It's exact replicas, full form, in dress,
And the people that you
people that
know,
everyone, you're right, that everyone recognizes and adores and looks up to. I guess in certain parts of the world, yeah, not me, but they're so real that when you look at them, you think they're going to start blinking. Right?
So true.
Yeah, you ever been? You ever been to Madame Tussauds? You never been to Madame Tussauds? It's a great experience.
yeah, in France,
It's like some of them are so. There's Niagara Falls is one, Niagara Falls, but some of them, New York City, Manhattan. Some of them are so real. I really think they're going to start blinking and they're going to start moving. Like
It's
they're.
really not cool. I don't think I found it interesting.
So would going to like that wax museum?
No, they wouldn't. Okay, good question. So going to a wax museum is not asur, right? Going to a wax museum is not asur at all. The issue, though, all we've been talking about is us making them or retaining them. Okay, you're not making it or retaining them.
Or a company that makes them.
What?
Or a company.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
That's fine.
Yeah, we already said you could even make business with them.
But if the whole point,
Okay. Yeah.
if the whole point of say for example going into why we're not allowed to go into churches is because there's avodah zarah. That's why we're allowed to go into mosques or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that they don't have pictures of idols or anything like that. So
Yeah, but they're not idols. These are not idols.
well, their images in the
They're images in the form of a human being that the Gemara wants to derive. Lo ta'asun iti. You're right, and to make them would be a problem.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
sometimes you see people go like,
but you're not making them.
It's Michael Jackson.
Okay, but you're not making them.
And you look at it in awe, like, wow, Michael Jackson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all bowing down to it and saying, please provide me with rain. And
No, but you're in awe of the idol of this.
I'm in awe of you. Am I doing what is that up?
Now you're gonna be blood.
Huh? They sell what? Really? Yeah, but that was the image of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah. Does it really look like a human being? Again, you could make business out of it, right? Business selling it is allowed. Now, retaining it is another issue, but selling it is allowed. If you want to be machmir, you can, poke out something, give a scratch or something. Okay, the last thing that we'll look at is the Grot Moshe Ramose Feinstein here, where he brings that question that you asked Jacob about little kids drawing. Like you have a little kid drawing a star and a sun and a moon. They have no idea what they're drawing. Okay? No one said that a star looks like what we think a star looks like. So he asks, or he's asked, Im yesh isur b'tziyurei chama ulvana shetinokot osin. Is there a prohibition regarding the drawings of a sun and moon that children draw? So he says, "B'davar hatinokot shemitzayirin bidyo ubetzeva tzurat levana v'chama." Regarding children who draw sun and moon with ink and color. Im yesh mamash dimyon le'alevana u'lachama. If it looks like the moon and the sun, she'anashim dolim yomru shu tzurat chama ulvana. Where another adult will say, "Hey, that's a moon, that's a sun." Yesh le'ol seram le'elu sheba'u lechinuch. Then it should be prohibited once the child reaches the age of education. Some say 6, some say 9. Because like we learned with the Shach and the Taz, because they hold that even making a simple shape of a sun and the moon is not allowed. This is only when there is a clear resemblance of the sun. And most children are not capable of drawing this. For there is no resemblance, there's nothing there. I don't know what that stands for. Only in the eyes of Eve it looks like the sun. But nevertheless, it's still not good to teach children to draw the sun and the moon. Because they're going to want to learn how to draw pictures that actually resemble them, which is forbidden. Why should we teach them? Only to forbid it later when they're able to draw it properly. So yes, Rav Moshe would allow it only for very, very young kids, maybe, but that's pretty much it. Okay, so that concludes shiur number 2 of our. Let's just look at the summary, since this will recap what we've learned so far. So we started the shiur with a non-Jewish calendar. I'm just reading from page 85. Can we use a non-Jewish calendar? Rabban says you have a positive mitzvah to use the Jewish calendar, and therefore don't use a non-Jewish calendar. Okay? Even the Maram Shik says you're transgressing a Torah violation. Says Yabia Omer and Tzitz Eliezer, there's no problem. Okay? Because especially, mention that this is according, as long as you don't say this is according to the Christian count, then you're okay. Minchat Asher said we should be melamed zechut for people to do so. Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook says that no, use of the secular calendar is a violation of mentioning other gods' names. Now, is it better to use a numerical value or the name of the month? Rabbi Omer says it's better to use the name of the month, for example, January or February, because the Torah only uses numerical values. And the Tzitz Eliezer says, no, better to use a number. Can we receive charity from Gentiles? The Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to receive tzedakah from Gentiles in public. It's Chilul Hashem. Shevet HaLevi says even in private it's Chilul Hashem. Tzitz Eliezer says, although we're lenient nowadays, if you know the guy's a real pagan, you shouldn't do so. And certainly not from Christian groups. Now, pictures and drawings. This was today's discussion. Biblically, prohibited to make these pictures, rabbinically, even to retain them. For heavenly images like a sun, moon, and constellations, if they're raised, 3-dimensional, certainly you cannot make them. Tosfot, Rambam, and Ramban says you can't even keep them. Ritva allows to keep them. If they are flat, 2-dimensional, Tosfot, Rambam, and Ramban say you can't draw them, and Ritva allows to draw them. All opinions permit retaining them. Images of people, if they are 3-dimensional, according to Tosfot and Rambam, there's a debate among the Achronim whether you can make them or not. The Ramban says you're not allowed to make them or retain them. Ritva says you are allowed to make them, but you're not allowed to make them, but permitted to retain them. But if they're flat, for people, Tosfot and the Rambam says you're allowed to make and retain them. Ramban argues, and the Ritva says you are allowed to make and retain them. Other images, if they're raised, Tosfot and Rambam say you are allowed to make them and retain them. Ramban says no. Ritva holds like Tosfot and Rambam. And if they're flat, everybody holds you can make and retain them. Shulchan Aruch holds like Tosfot and Rambam. Taz holds like the Ramban. Can someone be photographed? The Dat Kohen says there are a lot of people who are strict, but the basic halacha in Shulchan Aruch, it's allowed. Best not to take a full body picture. Taz says even a headshot might be a problem. Can someone object to someone photographing? The Mishnah Lachot says yes. The Chut HaShani says no. What about dolls? Yechavedat says you're allowed to make them and retain them. Chut HaShani says you're not allowed to make them, but you are allowed to retain them. Shevet HaLevi says you can't do both. And Yakut Yosef says preferable not to buy a complete doll. What about drawing images to teach or study? But Moshe Feinstein says you should not teach a child who reaches the age of chinuch to draw a picture of the sun and moon, but for the purposes of teaching about creation, it would be allowed. All right, Chazal Baruch, B'ezrat Hashem. Come back next time, and we'll continue with Shi'ur number 3, which speaks about great things, theaters and stadiums, etc., and good things. Have a great night, everyone.
Everything